Imagine having the best possible life from birth and then choosing to waste all of it. Let's hear about Prince Andrew, the person whose name brings the royal family the most shame. Andrew got a very different set of names than his mother did. His mother got titles that showed respect and tradition. People in the media gave him names like Randy Andy and Air Miles Andy, names that stuck around for decades and people still call him that today. Both of those nicknames and what Prince Andrew did were not jokes. Hold on tight, because this movie will show you why everyone really dislikes Prince Andrew. During the 1980s, when Princess Diana was the center of attention, Andrew became known for being cocky. People liked Diana because she was the people's princess, but they made fun of Andrew because he was royal trash. Even though he served in the military and should have gained respect, his womanizing cocky attitude and sense of entitlement made him look bad. People didn't like him. He was made fun of. Everyone liked chatter, and Andrew fed it to them every day. The news was full of stories about him chasing women, talking about his victories, and showing off his royal status. While his brothers Charles and Edward were in trouble for different reasons, Andrew's behavior stood out because it was always so shallow. He didn't keep quiet. He wasn't smart. He was also not respected. In his family, he was just the clown prince. Andrew had divorced Sarah Ferguson by the late 1990s, but their relationship was still a circus of shame. Ferguson was made fun of by other people. Still, Andrew looked worse in some way. There were rumors that he still wanted her because, as one friend put it, he liked showing off her knickers. The mood wasn't lovely. It was rude, creepy, and a warning of how low Andrew could go in terms of his honor. His pride showed everywhere. In a famous story, he threw temper fits at staff, asked for extras, and talked to servants like they were disposable. His former assistants said he was rude and spoiled, and that he yelled orders and insulted people below him. He wasn't loved inside or outside the palace walls. He messed up the lives of many women, not just Sarah. Andrew's fame as Randy Andy only grew after his relationship with American actress Koo Stark stopped. People made fun of him. The press made fun of him, and even other royals stayed away from him. Diana's beauty made Andrew look even more stupid. He stood for greed where she stood for kindness. Where she was loved, he was looked down upon. It wasn't just how he treated women, it was how he lived his life. He was known as Air Miles Andy because he took so many private flights, expensive holidays, and spent too much money that taxpayers paid for. People in Britain had a hard time during recessions and budget measures, but Andrew partied like he was rich even though he had never made a penny. Every time he was seen getting off of another private jet, it made people more angry. He lived well off of other people's money and didn't even act like he cared. By the 2000s, people used Andrew's name to show they were embarrassed. He sexy fucked Courtney Love, bragged about his ties, and acted like no one could get close to him. But what really made people mad was that he didn't seem to care about the results. No matter how embarrassing the news was, or how low the stories were, the castle always kept Andrew safe. He was proof that the royalty kept the worst people safe. The most shocking thing is that all of this happened before Epstein. Everyone already didn't like him. Already he was a shame. His behavior with women, his pride, the way he treats staff, and the way he spends money without any guilt. It was enough to ruin the future of any normal man. But Andrew wasn't like other people. He was the king's son, so he was kept safe. Even so, the hate grew. When pictures of him with Epstein in Central Park came out, his image was already in bad shape. He was still good after that scandal. It only proved what everyone already thought. Andrew was more than just a bad prince. It was clear that he was a bad person, because he constantly brought shame to his country. In the end, everyone could only laugh at his sleaze. That laughing, though, was made out of anger and hate. Not only Andrew did people not like him, they looked down on him. He showed that the monarchy could fall apart from the inside, that wealth could make people stupid, and that pride could kill even the Queen's own son. He went even lower than everyone thought he could go. The Epstein incident wasn't the last thing that brought him down. It showed everything bad that people thought about him. People who thought Andrew had made the government look bad before hadn't seen anything yet. Through the late 1990s, Andrew's image as the once stylish son of the Queen had changed. He was no longer praised by the media as a war hero or a bachelor prince. They made fun of him. Air Miles Andy became his permanent nickname, making fun of his love of private jets, fancy resorts, and shady rich friends who gave him money to live a good life. His official royal income wasn't even close to enough to pay for the expensive clothes, golf trips, and yachts he showed off. People started to wonder where the money was coming from since it had to. Every time Andrew showed up, he was taken with businessmen whose reputations were less than stellar. The people who worked at Buckingham Palace knew that Andrew had become a problem. His pride was unmatched. His former assistants said he was rude, demanding, and snubbed anyone he thought was less important than him. One worker said that he dealt with courtiers like 18th century slaves. A different person said that he yelled at footmen if their tea wasn't just right. This was never included in the fancy royal news releases, but the stories spread like wildfire, making more and more people think that Andrew wasn't just spoiled, he was mean. The women came next. Andrew's love life had always been a mess, but now it turned into a fast. His interest in models and actors grew after he split up with Sarah Ferguson, the mother of his children. The press told everyone that he had a one-night stand with model Caprice, who reportedly made fun of him by making him walk around her apartment in knickers as a joke. He didn't look like the brave prince. Instead, he was like a sad middle-aged man who was looking for approval. He was seen at wild Hollywood parties and was said to have been seeing Courtney Love. He also had a lot of relationships with famous people, but they later said nothing important happened. Instead of making him look better, these stories hurt his character even more. He was no longer just Randy Andy, he was the point of a joke around the world. Still, Andrew walked around with a strange sense of security, as if he thought no one could hurt him. Because of his mother's position, he didn't have to answer to anyone like other guys would. He didn't care that he was criticized for wasting tax money. He smiled when asked about his sketchy business partners. He hid behind the royal walls every time there was a scandal, sure that the anger of the people would go away. It worked for years, but the cracks kept getting bigger. It got harder for him to ignore his business ties. Andrew made friends with oligarchs, arms traders, and people who were desperate. As Britain's trade minister, his job was supposed to help the UK's economy in other countries, but it turned into a trip for him to gather power and favors. He was seen getting close to the son of Muammar Gaddafi. He paid for his own trips with money from Kazakh businessmen who are accused of corruption. He always seemed to be involved with deals involving dictatorships and shady oil companies. Whitehall officials said Andrew was making Britain look bad on the world stage, but the palace kept standing up for him. People, on the other hand, saw through the act. This prince lived in palaces and flew on jets, and his way of life rested on making deals with some of the worst people in the world. At the same time that most Americans were cutting back, Andrew was showing off gold cufflinks and watches that he got from billionaires. The anger grew. Then he made friends that he could never break away from. One of them was Ghislaine Maxwell, the beautiful daughter of Robert Maxwell, a shamed media mogul. She put him in touch with Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous billionaire criminal whose web of abuse would finally bring down everyone who was connected to him. Andy didn't seem to care at the time, though. He was seen walking with Epstein in Central Park after Epstein had been found guilty of abusing a child. Andrew didn't care about the criticism when he was asked why he would hang out with a man like that. He later said that staying at Epstein's house was easy, because it was close to where he was going. It seemed more like cooperation to the people than like ease of access. His image was in freefall by the middle of the 2000s. The press called him spoilt, sleazy, and careless with money. Former friends sold newspapers stories about him that made him look like an egotistical jerk who brags about his wins and doesn't care about women. The British people who paid for his security team hated every penny that was spent on it. Politicians said in whispers that his actions put the throne in danger. The case then came up. In 2015, Virginia Jew named Prince Andrew in court papers and said he was one of the powerful men Epstein used to traffic her when she was 14 years old. She said that 3 times Andrew had made her have with him. Buckingham Palace denied it right away, but the damage was already done and couldn't be fixed. Ghislaine Maxwell was happy in the background of the picture of Andrew with his arm around Jur's waist. It became one of the most famous royal pictures of all time. Andrew said that he didn't remember meeting her. He was not believed. This was no longer a rumor or talk. In one of the most shocking scams of our time, the monarchy was drawn into it. Andy, who used to be the Queen's favorite son, was now the weakest link in the chain. Andrew still thought he could talk his way out of it, even though the walls were closing in on him. In 2019, he agreed to an interview on TV so that he could clear his name. Instead, he gave a PR disaster so bad that it destroyed any credibility he still had. But before we talk about how he was humiliated, how he fell completely, and why people in Britain and around the world came to truly hate him, let's look at what went on behind palace doors in the years before his famous no-sweat interview. Because Andrew's fall from grace wasn't quick. It took a long time. By 2011, Andrew had burned through all of his confidence. In the news, he was no longer called the Queen's favorite son, or the handsome military hero. It wasn't even worth calling Randy Andy. He was now not only bad but also a parasite. The media started to show his life, which was full of private jets, shady oligarchs, and sex parties. And what they found was gross. First, he was crazy about being privileged. Andrew showed it off like he was a spoiled kid who had never grown up. Heli rides, golf trips, and free homes were his favorite things. Reports said he flew to golf events in style on taxpayer money, demanded the best wine, and told everyone to bow. When pushed, he played it off. The taxpayers love it, he joked, meaning that he thought people loved paying for his wild lifestyle. They didn't. They were very angry. During the financial crisis, people in Britain tightened their belts while he bled the country dry. This was criticized in every paper. The Russians then showed up. Andrew liked oil oligarchs, ex-KGB billionaires, and shady businesses who hid their money in foreign countries. In 2010, WikiLeaks released cables from U.S. diplomats that said Andrew was cocky, rude, and publicly made fun of investigations into government corruption while they were in meetings. He was caught swearing, bragging about friends he had in Kazakhstan, and defending sketchy deals. He believed that no one could hurt him. In fact, every serious leader in the room thought he sounded like he was drunk. Still, that wasn't the bottom. That's when Jeffrey Epstein's name came up again, pulling Andrew right into the swamp. The famous picture was seen by everyone. Virginia Roberts, who was only 17 years old at the time, was standing with Prince Andrew. He had his arm around her bare waist, and was smiling like it was the best day of his life. Ghislaine Maxwell stood next to her in the dark. The woman who was thought to be Epstein's fixer. The picture went everywhere. It was no longer a rumor. It proved something. Andrew said no. He first said he had never met her. Then he said it was fake. When the picture was shown to him, the girl was there though. Maxwell was in the room. It was seen by everyone. It made him look weak when he denied it. He claimed that he didn't remember ever meeting her. Easy to use. Even his own friends didn't believe him. The staff even told him to stop. He was at those parties, of course. He should have been able to write. Then the worst insult ever came. Andrew said that the picture might have been changed. People laughed at him. The picture was real, according to experts. His weak reasons only buried him deeper. Then there was the BBC interview, which was the worst thing that he had ever done. Being stiff, sweaty and grinning while sitting. Because of years of rumors, Andrew tried to clear things up. He said he couldn't have slept with Virginia because he was in Woking at a Pizza Express. He would always remember that line. He also said he wasn't sweating, literally refused to sweat because of a supposed medical problem. Everyone didn't believe a word of it. He was torn apart by social media. Every day, jokes made fun of him. In his effort to clear his name, he ruined it for good. The BBC talk wasn't just bad, it was terrible. One of his own advisors said it was like watching a car crash happen very slowly. He lost his sponsors and ties with charities in just a few days, and Buckingham Palace took steps to shut him up. The Queen, his mother, had no choice. As far back as modern royal history goes, this was the first time a senior prince was found guilty in public. Andrew was sent away. He was told not to be seen. He hid, and the cases kept coming in. Virginia Roberts was sued in civil court. He was being asked about Epstein by the FBI. It was made clear by lawyers in New York that Andrew was no longer just a royal embarrassment. He might have been a criminal victim, or even worse, a partner. He was called a creep, a liar, and a coward in every story. The stories about bullying also came up again. The palace staff made him look like a spoilt, angry jerk. He yelled at servants and made them run up and down the stairs for no reason. He also insisted that his teddy bears be arranged correctly or he would blow up. A grown man, almost 60 years old, having a temper tantrum over stuffed animals. It was sad, childish, and humiliating. but it fits the pattern. Andrew had been a child all along. He still thought the world owed him everything, and he didn't think it would ever catch up. It did though. In 2019, people didn't just hate him. He gave off radiation. In public, the royals stayed away from him. Politicians made fun of him. In private, his name became a slang word for shame. But Andrew refused to give in. He said he wasn't guilty. He told them he was loyal. He claimed that everything was wrong, and that he was being lied to. But it was clear what was going on. His pride had destroyed him. But this is not the end for him. Because Prince Andrew would still be connected to something even darker after Epstein, after Pizza Express, and after giving up his military job and royal role. A new scandal was just around the corner, one that would finally make people say that it wasn't just creepy or embarrassing, but also risky. Andrew's reputation took a final hit from not only scandal but also humiliation on top of shame. Andrew's status in the royal family had dropped so much by the time the Queen died in 2022, that not many people would have thought it possible for the man who was once called the Queen's favorite son. Besides his military titles, he lost all of his public tasks and favors. The palace's message was harsh, clinical, and sad. In his own right, he would make his case. In an instant, those words took away decades of carefully earned luxury. The jeering was even worse behind the palace walls. It was said that Prince Charles and Prince William were angry that Andrew had hurt the monarchy's reputation at a time when it was already weak. William supposedly said he was a threat to the family, and Charles thought his cocky brother was a threat to the crown itself. They were very careful about how their dislike of Andrew got out to the press, which showed that he wasn't just an embarrassment. He was openly looked down upon. But the deal he made with Virginia Giuffre in February 2022 sealed his fate. Andrew agreed to pay about $12 million to stay out of jail. The palace said it wasn't government money, but the damage was already done and couldn't be fixed. There was a prince who said he wasn't guilty and would clear his name in court, but instead he wrote a check to stop the event. A lot of people saw that payment as an admission. People will never forget his terrible BBC interview, in which he said he couldn't sweat, and that he was at a Woking Pizza Express on the night of the claimed assault. That performance was already a joke around the world. The deal made it clear that Andrew wasn't just not in touch, he was also hiding behind his wealth. He couldn't read the room, which made things worse. Andrew allegedly tried to get back to his royal duties even after he stopped being in the public eye. He wanted to get his service titles back. He wished to take part in parades. He even pushed to wear his navy dress to the funeral of the Queen. But William and Charles stopped all of them. In the end, he only showed up for a short time, walking quietly behind his mother's coffin while everyone watched him lose all of his honors. The crowds that lined the parade route were very mean. It was pulled away in Edinburgh that the person who was being rude said, "Andrew, you're a sick old man." That moment showed the people how they really felt. Not kindness or sympathy, but open disgust. The king or queen herself had to pay. As soon as Andrew came to light, there were more questions about corruption, power, and not being held accountable. His crimes made more people dislike the royal family, especially younger people who saw him as the personification of an old-fashioned class system. His favorability numbers dropped so low that they were below those of even the harshest critics of the monarchy, making him the most disliked royal. Many people saw Andrew as proof that the royal family would do anything to protect itself, while regular people would have to deal with the full force of the law. After the humiliations, he was no longer able to protect himself. The news spread stories about his bad money situation, including unpaid bills, shady business deals, and people being desperate behind palace doors. People used to make fun of him as Air Miles Andy because he flew all over the world, but now they talked about him as if he were a guy who needed help from his mother. The safety line broke when she died. Reports say that Charles cut Andrew's allowance, which forced him to sell his property and live in exile at Royal Lodge. He refuses to leave the house, even though the new king is trying to get him to leave. For the man who had been spoiled his whole life, this less than glamorous life was like being publicly castrated. But the worst thing about Andrew's fall is that he never learnt. He didn't believe he could quietly disappear like other people did. He kept thinking he could make a comeback. Even in 2023 and 2024, rumors from his team said he hoped to get better. He longed to work for the government again. But every time they tried to test the seas, they were met with anger. News stories constantly brought up the incident, and Epstein's name was linked to it like a ghost. The king or queen has moved on. People have moved on. Andrew is the only one who won't accept that he's done. In the end, it's easy to see why everyone really dislikes Prince Andrew. He stands for pride without any consequences, power without responsibility, and shame without an explanation. He had every benefit in life, from being born into a royal family to military honor, but he wasted it all on greed, recklessness, and making friends with people who would hurt him. His fall wasn't caused by a single mistake, but by years of feeling entitled, and a world that wasn't ready to look away. We will always remember him this way. The son of the queen was once her favorite, but now he is the most hated person in modern royal history. The prince who didn't get hot. The prince who paid a lot of money to keep charges quiet. The prince who made being rich look bad. Andrew became the stain that can never be cleaned from a kingdom that was built on looks.